a place that knows you as God. Welcome to a place that sees who you are. We are of one mind. We are of one heart. Welcome to a place.
Ship's in a storm. And it's rocking so bad, it's clear the ship's going down. So the captain asks his crew, is anybody here can pray? One man steps forward, says, I can, Captain, I can. He goes, good, because we're short one life jacket. The rest of us will get them. Boy, I blew that joke, didn't I? So, the semantics of science of mind. There aren't any. But we keep thinking there are, people keep saying there are, and people keep talking about semantics. And so what happens is people do not get the full benefit of what science of mind has to offer. Let me read you my one quote for today from Dr. Ernest Holmes. Science of mind makes a tremendous claim when it states that it can free the individual from bondage of sickness, poverty, and unhappiness. It makes this statement without hesitation and without qualification. It does not retract from that claim, and it never will. It does, however, carefully set forth the conditions under which it operates and the laws governing life, warning man and anybody else that unless they understand these conditions and obey these laws, they will not receive the full benefit from the science of mind. This stuff works. My life is living proof that this stuff works. And yet, I have people who come to me all the time who are struggling with their lives who want to tell me that they understand this teaching. This teaching is very clear and very simple. What you embody shows up. What you keep feeding yourself shows up. If you want to change the results in your life, you can't be arguing with me around semantics. You have to look at what it is you're actually saying, because that is what you're creating. This is a creative process. This is a creative process that creates out of the embodiment of our word, our thought, and our actions. Whatever gets interpreted from those three things, the totality of which then shows up. If we want to fight for the fact that we didn't mean what we said, God, how often I hear that. That's not what I meant. Well, then, why do you have that result? If you want a different result, stop defending what you meant and start looking at the result and seeing what you need to say differently so you can get a different result. And we're all dealing with this. I am not above this. I'm sitting in a financial meeting where we're counting the money last week, and out of my mouth comes, well, I know the third week's always hard for us. And they all looked at me going, really? Is that what you want to know? And I was like, oh, right. No, that's not what I want to know. I want to know that this is a great financial week for us. Right? That's what I want to know. And so it's wonderful. You know, Trish was talking about the support we get here. I get it too. It's not like I get the slide, right? Now, as senior minister, I could have easily got a high horse and said, well, that's not what I meant, you know. But because I really want to learn this stuff and I really want my life to demonstrate and have the results I want to have in my life, I was simply quick to go, okay. That's not what I want, so let me change what I just said. I find the less defensive I get around what I think are facts and everything else, I get to then make a stand for what it is I want and actually see that show up. Has anybody here ever heard of norms engineering? I heard about it for the first time last night on my drive home. It turns out there is a whole science called norms engineering, and it's being applied in Somalia as we speak. It turns out that the Taliban ran Somalia for decades, and one of their stances was you could not play music. And if they found somebody playing music, they would make them eat whatever it was they were listening the music through, whether it killed them or not. And this went on so long in Somalia that people, as a norm, stopped listening to music. Now the Taliban have been conquered for a couple of years now, and people were still not listening to music because that was the norm. So they applied this new science called norms engineering. And the most popular reality show in Somalia is people dancing and running around the street listening to music, making it more normal to do that. And so all of a sudden, people are now starting to do that in the street. The reality show came first when nobody was doing it. And now, because it's called a reality show, people are taking it on as this must be the norm for us now. And after decades, people once again are beginning to listen to music in Somalia. That's science of mind at work. That's holding a vision. That is having a what we call a mental equivalent, because in our movement, mental equivalents are very powerful and very important in what it is we are looking to create. It isn't just about saying the words. It's about really holding that vision in our minds and feeling for ourselves beyond what the circumstances or what some people call facts or reality. I heard that word today too. The reality is, no. We have to be willing to challenge what we see as a reality. Reality is not as it appears to be, like ever. Like ever. If you ever hear yourself say, but the reality is, you have just made something concrete, created your reality, because this is a creative process, out of what it is you just said, made it much tougher now, since probably what you just said was a reality isn't what you want. Because I've really hardly ever heard somebody go, well, the reality is for something they actually want. Usually they say, I got what I wanted. So if you hear yourself saying, well, the reality is, then the odds are that isn't what you want, except you just made it more concrete. Because that's the creative process. That's science of mind. That's how it works. We showed a movie here last night called The Connected Universe. And I have not seen a movie that was a better example of using science of mind inaccurately. I mean, it was exactly a great example of what so many of us do all the time. The movie was called A Connected Universe. And the first thing it did was start talking about how disconnected we are. And showing all the different ways in which we were disconnected. The movie was about how we are to rise above and put into being all that is good and kind. And the more that we do that, we raise the vibration of the planet, which is a great thing to say. And then the next thing it did was show all how wars and show all the ways in which we're always on our phone and we're doing this and we're doing that, as if there's a way to disconnect from that everything's connected. I mean, if once you realize that everything's connected, it means that everything going on must be connected in the connection. How can something be disconnected if everything's connected? And yet, because this is a creative process, we get to create experiencing disconnection. We absolutely do get to create that. And one of the ways we do that is by continually talking about feeling disconnected and how we're disconnected. And that's what this movie did. It constantly was talking about how we're disconnected. And I just thought to myself, wow, that's, how often do you do that in your own life, right? You're going around, you come here, you get this idea in your head. I know science of mind, it's about da-da-da. I know how to lift myself up. And the next thing you know is you're feeling sorry for yourself because something just went very badly. Or you're saying, well, the science of it means this is impossible. Well, okay. Except there's something going on here well beyond the physics of science that we are aware of. There's something going on here that is larger and yet has total play in terms of what we feed it. And so the movie was right when it said what you want to feed it is what it is you want. It's just that the movie itself wasn't doing that. And I think that happens for a lot of us a lot of the time. It certainly was happening for me in the moment when I was sitting there going, I know we're not going to, do well this next week, right? There's me not standing in what it is I needed to be standing in about this coming week. And I was really happy to have people around me who were quick to go, whoa, let's not stand there. And that, again, is what Trish was talking about in terms of the beauty of community, because you get to have people around you who will remind you, as often as you're willing to be around, whoa, what you're thinking isn't going to get you what you want. How you're holding that isn't going to get you there. How about try this? One of the interesting things that for myself, so Monday, I started showing the illusion of symptoms of what I've watched other people call the flu. And immediately went into that place that I have been practicing so much around my body, where I know my immune system is beyond incredible, and I know that nothing sticks here, that I am Teflon when it comes to this kind of stuff. And so that night, I spent the entire night sweating out whatever was trying to stick to me, so that I actually woke up the next day feeling great. And I came to work and everything was going fine, went home that night, and even Ash was mentioned, wow, you're just so much better, so quicker. And then that night, whatever it was trying to stick to me, and my body's just sweating it out. Woke up the next day feeling even better, but now my nose is running like crazy, right? So I'm here on Thursday, and it's just pouring out of me, and actually I feel pretty good. But I don't think the people who were around that day were looking at me going, huh, feeling all that comfortable with all the snot that's running out of my nose. So I decided, you know what, maybe I'll go home. And I went home and I slept, and this thing passed, and I started to think about how this stuff is working for me personally. And I started thinking about lucid dreaming, something I have practiced. Somebody's cell phone. I started talking about thinking about lucid dreaming because it's something I've practiced. Now, lucid dreaming is the art of when you are asleep and in the middle of a dream, you notice you're dreaming. You actually know that you're dreaming. And I am pretty good at that. And normally, when I notice I'm dreaming, the thing I get to ask myself, what do I want to do? What do I want in this dream? And there's only really two things I like to do in my dream. One is talk to my higher self and get information. The other is fly. I really like flying. So that's what I do most of the time. So then I'll go and I'll be flying, just like that in my dream. I'm now flying. And then something will happen that will be very dramatic, and in the next moment, I either wake up or I'm back in a dream that I forget that I'm dreaming and caught up in the drama that's going on in my dream. And it dawned on me that's exactly what's going on here. That I have these incredibly lucid moments of knowing the truth, and then it goes away. And then I get to have another one, and then it goes away. And that the more I practice this stuff, the more often I get to have those kind of lucid moments in this dream. Because if you don't think you're dreaming here, if you honestly believe that an awake state is one where all we get to do is whatever our physical bodies allow, if all we get to do is what science tells us is possible, if all we get to do is, march each day with time, then you are missing an extraordinary amount of what is actually possible here. This is not semantics. This is the reality of science of mind. This is what's possible for each and every one of us as we lift ourselves up. But to do that, we have to be very, very clear about what it is we are telling ourselves. I get to lucid dream because I kept telling myself I'm lucid dreaming. I didn't get to lucid dream by saying it's not possible or it's hard or I don't know how. Here's how. Check your thoughts all the time. The more often you are willing to take a look at what it is you are telling yourself, the more often you will grow into that place of being in charge of the creative process that is your life. The more you are around folks who will point out to you when what you are saying is incongruent with what it is you want. We all need those reminders. If you think you can do this all by yourself, you're crazy. Now that's insanity. You need the support of having folks around you who will be there for you and lovingly and kindly, not be saying, how did you create that? Which isn't helpful to anybody. But hey, I just heard you say this, and I'm not sure that's really what you want. That's the kind of support we need. Somebody to simply say, I just heard you say this, and I'm not sure that's what you want. And then ask the question, what do I want? I find that all of us use the saying, I know, all the time. If we could catch ourselves every single time we said that and ask the question, is that really what I want to know? The life-changing impact of that is gigantic. Because everybody, or at least almost everybody in this room, has a fairly good idea about the teaching of science of mind. And yet the practice of science of mind is where we get to actually see our lives become the place of awe and majesty that's truly possible. I mean, we are in a wonderland here. You hear me say this all the time, and I keep at it because as long as we're not, as long as your life is not exactly the way you always wished it would be, you still have work to do. You still have practice to do. You can think that you've been in this teaching a million years. You can think you know the books backwards and forward. But until you actually are experiencing your life, having milestones, like that thing that happened on Monday with those symptoms that passed through and me knowing myself to be Teflon, that had never happened to me before. I know I'm moving in the direction because I keep having milestones. I keep having something new that is awestruck happen. And that's what you want. Isn't that what you want? Am I wrong here? Anyone can live in the mundane world and battle their way through and make their life for themselves and step by step do it. What we're here to do is take on a sense of God, take on a sense of our own divinity, our own eternalness, and then apply it in a way that gets us beyond the physics, beyond what looks like reality, beyond what we think is ever possible. Facts are fascinating things. There was a time when it was a fact that the world was flat, that it was a fact that the sun circled the earth, not the other way around. It was a fact that nothing lighter than air could fly. There is no such thing as a fact that will stick around very long at all unless you want it to. So stick to the facts you want. Let go of the ones you don't want. Let your life rise lighter than air. Let your life feel the awestruck magnificence. Watch your thoughts. There are no semantics here. If you find yourself saying, that's not what I mean, then you're being defensive. You can't be defensive and grow in science of mind at the same time. You have to let go of every bit of your defensiveness if you want to get the full benefits of this teaching. This teaching works by very specific laws. And they start with what we're telling ourselves. Everything is about the self-talk. Everything is about the self-talk. So if you get around somebody or a bunch of folks, get into class, show up on Thursdays around here are amazing. There's always classes going on. There's always support. If you need to, just call me and sit down with me. Call Trish, sit down with Trish. We got practitioners galore who can support you in making sure that what you're telling yourself is really what it is you want to create. This is a creative process. Life is a creative process, which we are creating out of our self-talk every moment of every day. The more we are telling ourselves, reminding ourselves that we are eternal, powerful, creative spiritual beings, that's what we're being lifted to be. And that's the life we get to then experience. Thank you. Take out what you're going to give. Hold it in your hand. Unfold it. Unfold it. Hold it in your hand. This is God. This is power. This is how we create in the universe. We send out, it comes back. This is our declaration of our own richness. This is our declaration of our own richness. And when we send this out, it returns to us multiplied amazingly. Let's say this together. God is the source of all supply. Money is God in action. What we give, we receive multiplied abundantly. All that God is, I am. And so it is.
You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God.